All right, we are on the road.
Yeah, well, I'm at least on the road. Tim isn't.
Man, I'll be on the road one of these days.
Anyways, how you doing tonight, Tim?
I'm doing all right. Tired. Man, that one of those fridges was one of the heaviest refrigerators I've ever moved in my entire life, and then the other one was fine.
I bet you could do like a whole stand-up bit about that fridge.
I don't know, maybe. I could do just a little bit with T and his dad exchanging dialogue because they were just talking about like T's all like I'm gonna beat you and your son's ass, and then his dad's all
T
like,
is the wackiest.
huh?
So T is the wackiest.
Yeah, he's like I'm gonna beat you and your son Corey's ass, and he's all like, well, you could try, but I'm gonna start shooting. And then they start arguing about who's got more bullets and who's got bigger guns, and I'm all like, man, father and son bonding, man, like dialogue is important.
Anyways, yeah, so I got out from school an hour early, so
That's what's
now
up.
I'm on spring break for a whole 2 days. Anyways, uh, tonight's episode of On the Road, I guess Tim wants to talk about our favorite comedians and some of our favorite bits that they do. So, Tim, you like comedy more than me. I guess you could start off this episode.
Man, I don't know if I have any bits in particular, but I got a lot of actually maybe I got like when Bill Burr rants and raves about the epidemic of gold digging whores that nobody talks about, and people don't know like when he's talking about it on Jimmy Fallon, and like Jimmy Fallon doesn't know what like whether he should laugh or not. Like he's all like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "What do you mean? What am I talking about? There's an epidemic of this shit going on." Fucking talking about Kobe Bryant's fucking wife getting all this money and she's never hit a layup, and like.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, that song cracks me up. Oh man, I tell you, Bill Burr is like the closest thing we're gonna get to George Carlin.
Man.
Yeah.
And Carlin, man, Carlin used to preach the truth, man. He used to fucking try to expose fucking the media and all sorts of shit for how like and like they just let him do it. They're like, well, he's a crazy old man or whatever. Like we can like no one believes him. Like,
Yeah. I love George Carlin, even when he pokes fun at the things that I do or the things I believe in or say. It's just funny. I love when people poke holes in that stuff. Some people are too uptight when comedians make jokes, but I love George Carlin and his brutal honesty. Excuse me, and his brutal honesty.
man, like people do get so uptight about jokes or whatever, and it even happens at a comedy club. Like if you are at a comedy club and you get offended by a joke that someone's saying, you're an asshole.
And you're an idiot.
You're an asshole. You're an idiot.
Idiot. You should not have been there.
But it happens all the time. You can on YouTube you can find all sorts of like heckler compilations where like Bill Burr's getting heckled. There's a lot of people getting heckled, and then they just own the hecklers. I'm like, well, why don't you just shut the fuck up or leave or whatever, you know? I'm like,
I don't know. I've never been to see any comedians. I almost went to see Ryan Davis when he was in like Schaumburg, but plans just ended up not happening. Yeah, it's a long story, but
the only
I do want to see Bill Burr if he ever comes to town.
the only like professional ones I've seen are like stuff that I've worked at, like Gabriel Iglesias.
He's funny.
There's some other ones. He's really funny and he's really cool too. A lot of celebrities that I've worked for, you're not allowed to meet him or whatever. But Gabriel Iglesias, he doesn't give a fuck, dude. He's really humble. He likes his crew. He likes his fans, and he'll stop and take pictures and do all that and can tell a joke. And he's a really cool guy. And apparently, Larry the Cable Guy, as much as you might not like his comedy or whatever, he's like a really cool dude. I've had some buddies that have gone on tour and stuff with him, and one of my coworkers that has been on tour with him had died. Like he was towing trucks or whatever, and he ended up just like having a heart attack while he was driving his tow truck, and he died. But
I'm sorry, man.
but Larry the Cable Guy is so much of the shit, dude. He fucking donated money to that person's funeral and shit, dude. Like even though they haven't seen each other in years, and he hasn't been on his tour and shit in years, dude. Larry the Cable Guy is all like, dude, fucking, here's some money, help out your family, dude. I remember fucking like all that shit, dude, and like, here you go, like, and so like there's like there's a lot of cool people that like you wouldn't even expect it, especially off their fucking like comedy reputation, whatever. You expect him just to be some silly dude that like just doesn't give a fuck, whatever. But you know, like behind the scenes, a lot of people that you least expect are probably some of the coolest fucking people, you know, like.
Yeah. But, so anyways, so I was watching that Joe Rogan clip you sent me of him being up on stage and yelling at that Carlos Mencia guy.
Carlos Mencia, that's what they call him, Carlos Mencia.
Yeah, so like I had first heard that he had stole jokes. Like I've never really been to comedy, but I heard somebody talk about that back in like 2010. I think I heard somebody mention that, but I never had seen any of his stand up. So you sent me that, and I watched like one other video on that. I watched like 2 videos on him talking about Carlos Mencia. And so I tried to watch some Carlos Mencia, and no wonder the dude had to try to steal jokes. He is not funny.
He's not funny, and that's what makes it worse. That's what makes it worse when you steal jokes and you're still not funny. Then like you have no fucking skill, you have no talent, and like you just like. And it's the same thing. Same thing with the whole like Amy Schumer stuff. Like everyone says that she's stealing jokes, and then they say that she's still not funny. So like, what the fuck, dude? Like.
Damn, dude. It's like a lot of it is in how he like presents himself. Like half the reason like Bill Burr is hilarious is all those voices he does. Like George Carlin, I mean, he doesn't do like that many voices, but it's just like the charisma and how he acts and carries himself that kind of like makes it funny, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. You watch Carlos Mencia, he acts and sounds like an idiot. Like I want to just turn it off. Like everything about him like repulses me.
There's a video. It's called plagiarism and cryptomnesia, because there's a form of plagiarism called cryptomnesia, where you don't know necessarily if you're stealing material or you're stealing stuff that's already been done before, because there's so much content out in the world, and it's hard to know that there's what everything is out there. And then when someone that's doing something under cryptomnesia, when they get called out on it, they'll like apologize and like either stop using that content or fucking take it down, or if it's on something that they can take it down from. But someone who's just blatantly plagiarizing, they'll be like, no, they'll like defend it to the very end. They'll be like, no, dude, fuck you, dude, that's my work. You know, like, get the fuck out of here. Even if you present them with evidence that like, no, dude, I did this fucking 10 years ago. Like, what the fuck you talk like?
Yeah, I can understand when it happens on accident, because a lot of things, you know, they just sit in the back of your mind. Like even conversations you have, and you're like, I remember talking about this, I don't know who it was to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Things stay there.
Yeah.
So like sometimes, I don't know, I don't reread books often because I just have so many to read, but sometimes I'll be rereading something, I'll be like, oh, that's where I thought of that line from. Like there's just a funny line stuck in your head, and it's like, oh well, I can't use that. It's in this famous book or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can understand that. I think Joe Rogan said in one of those clips that Robin Williams used to steal jokes, but I think he said Robin Williams kind of did it like without thinking, like between bits, he'd like try to think of something and then accidentally say one of his buddy's jokes. That's understandable.
Yeah, because Robin Williams would just be so crazy, and like he used to be on a lot of cocaine and shit a lot too when he was doing his stand up. He would just be so crazy, so he would just go around with a lot of stuff. Same thing with Greg Giraldo, that's another great dead comedian. Like like fucking he would just be off the rails and he would just be ranting and raving. But you know that was all his stuff, whatever. Because he would he would just go off the rails and just on a rant, and like you don't know when he's gonna be done or not. And then and it just kills. Like he'll start talking about the obesity epidemic, and he's like, if there's an obesity epidemic, dude, you should there should be fucking fat fucking kids everywhere you go. Like you should have trouble getting to your car because you got to fight through all these fat fucking kids. Whatever they're talking about this obesity epidemic, like it's something that like it's polio or some shit.
So for the first time, I listened to Joe Rogan's stand-up last night. I played it just because he was in that clip you sent me, and we were going to talk about comedians. I needed something new to talk about because I can only say George Carlin's so funny like so many times in an hour. So I was watching Joe Rogan, and only of the times I had really heard him speak at all was a couple. I think I listened to like 3 or 4 maybe of the Joe Rogan Experience videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I listened to him and he talks to like Jordan Peterson, who's a teacher in a professor, I mean, in Toronto, and so I hear them talk about very serious like psychological things, and like so Joe is like all serious and all these, so I don't take him seriously. So I just played a stand-up from last year. He was in Atlanta, and he's cracking me up like right off the bat.
Oh, dude, he's funny, dude. He talks about a lot of fucking like crazy like alpha male type shit, dude. Like he'll talk about like big ass gorillas. He'll talk about like big ass gorillas and fucking whatever, man. Like, what was your one of your favorite bits of his?
Man, there were so many. My favorite one, maybe. I'd have to think about that. He was just saying like a lot of inappropriate stuff that I don't even want to repeat, which is probably his funniest stuff. But sorry, I like to keep this clean. But I don't know, there were a lot of like. Okay, I'm just gonna say it this way. He had a lot of hilarious sex jokes that I had like never even heard before. So there's like a sex joke you never heard before. Like it's the funniest joke in the world.
Yeah,
I want to keep this thing rather clean.
He's got a lot of those. Yeah, they're good. And oh man. Oh man. There's some good since we're recording on Women's Day, we could talk about some great female comedians instead of ones that suck. We could talk about like great ones like Kathleen Madigan.
I gotta be honest, like I'm not that big into comedy, so I don't think I know any female comedians.
What about Roseanne? Roseanne's.
I know her name, but I don't know any of her stuff.
Roseanne, like I was telling you, to watch The Green Room, and Roseanne has this bit on there where because she got in trouble for making. She dressed up as Hitler, and she was making all these little cookies or whatever, and like she had like a tray of cookies, and she was dressed up like Hitler, and she posted it like on her Twitter or Instagram or some shit. Like I don't know what, or she posted it somewhere online, and she got in like all sorts of trouble for it, and she was just trying to be funny, whatever. Like, and then they start. Huh?
That stuff's so petty.
It's funny though, and like everybody in the green room was just talking shit, and then she was she like how she described the picture, because they showed the picture of like of it, and like how she described it, because like she's holding the tray, but then she's like looking off into the distance, and she's like she's like, he's got the tray of cookies because he's proud of the cookies, but then he's looking off into the distance because he still has a dream. Whatever. I'm like, what the fuck?
That's funny. Well, I don't know. I tried the green room. I played I tried to play the hour-long video that I sent you last night just to make sure it was the right one. I tried to play it this morning. I was like maybe close to 10 minutes in. I didn't laugh at all. So I stopped driving for a second, and I typed in Bill Burr, and I just started playing one of his things
Oh man.
until I got to college. So I would really appeal to me. But talking about the people that got mad of her Hitler picture, I think half the people that get mad at those things are like fake mad, like fake offended, like, oh look at me, I'm mad too.
Oh yeah, but that's just a huge social media outcry thing that happens where like once one
Something
person
like that would be perfect for your social media news show.
once one yeah no it will be once one person causes an uproar, it makes like South Park portrays that type of demographic perfectly. Like that's like the whole population of South Park besides the kids. And sometimes it even is the kids, but but they can portray that stuff perfectly. And those are great comedians also. I don't know if they do stand up, but Trey Parker and Matt Stone are fucking geniuses. And like I think one of them is like could possibly be from the future, and he came to the past, and he's like, this is what we can do our satire on is things that are gonna happen.
I think George Carlin said it best, and this is why he's such a good comedian. He has this quote along the lines of, anyone who sees life as anything other than pure entertainment is totally missing the point. And I know that's something hard to really stick by and believe, especially when things are going wrong. But I mean, it's so true. Like when you think about it, like people get too offended over jokes. Like that's why Family Guy is such a hilarious show. Like people are like, oh, Family Guy always crosses the line, but like I don't know. Like I crack up when they have like that little scene of like it's prom night and some chick has like a baby that she like aborts herself and she like dumps it. And then she puts it in the dumpster, and then like she walks back in, and then like all the babies start coming out the dumpster, and they have some little like musical bit for a second. That's hilarious. Like I don't know, that's just me. Like you could joke about anything really. Like you could joke about everything. Like it's just I don't know. I don't know. You really can. I don't get too offended over jokes.
That's a good bit. And stuff like that, like with Family Guy and Simpsons and Futurama, stuff like that tell so many jokes, dude. There's gonna be a lot that hit and a lot that miss, and then it also depends. There's also trying to hit a wide range of senses of humors. So like, that stuff's good. I don't necessarily get entertained by Family Guy all the time, but it does have some jokes that will hit hard, and when they do hit hard, you'll be crying. Like
Family Guy, it just cracks me up. But like, I don't know. I can't get into like The Simpsons. The Simpsons, I try, and I really try, and I try to watch the like Treehouse of Horror thing that they have going on. They do like one of those every year or so.
yeah.
But like, I really try, but like those things, they're never that good. Like I don't know. I'm not really big on The Simpsons. South Park, I haven't seen that since I was a kid, so I can't really say.
New Simpsons isn't that great. Old Simpsons, like after season 1, season 2, up to like season like 10, I think, like that stuff's like really great. But it was, and a lot of it was like really original, and they were like pushing boundaries and stuff. Like without them, there wouldn't be a lot of South Parks and Family Guys and a lot of stuff like that, because they really pushed some boundaries and got stuff going on. Like same thing with Mr. Rogers. I know he's not a comedian, but that dude freaking pushed some boundaries to get a lot of children's television shows like up and running. Like that dude did a lot of cool stuff, and no one recognizes him for the awesome hero that he is. But back to comedy.
I would have to say for like animated comedies, so I'm not counting anything live action like Dick Van Dyke or Friends or anything.
Yeah.
Because I think I like animated comedies more. But animated comedies, I'd have to say the best one for me is Family Guy. Second best, hands down, F is for Family. Like F is for Family is like the funniest thing next to Family Guy. Like I don't think I've seen any other animated comedies that are as good as F is for Family. Like F is for Family, like plot wise, is great. Like the jokes are top notch. Like Bill Burr does no wrong at all.
What the frick just happened? Hold on, are we still recording?
Yeah, we're recording.
Yeah, we are. No, something happened on my computer. Like a screen just popped up and then it disappeared. So I just had to.
Oh, so what I said though, right?
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah, I don't know. F is for Family, like everything about that show is great.
It's good. It's good. And the second season brought in a lot more heart than what you expected from the first season. It was really cool, and I like a lot of the cleaner animated comedies as well, like stuff that came on like when I was a kid, like Tiny Toons and Animaniacs and like stuff like that. Like a lot of that stuff, like they were pushing some jokes, especially for a clean show, like a children's show. They were pushing some jokes that were like way over. They were like, I'm surprised they got a lot of that stuff approved, or maybe the censors didn't catch it or whatever because they're too busy laughing at the clean jokes. They didn't catch a lot of the dirtier ones, like the fingerprints one.
For real. Like in my room, I don't have a TV in my room. Like I don't get any channels or anything. But we have an Xbox. So my brother will like hook up the Xbox to a TV and he'll have it in our room because we share a room. And then whenever we go to sleep, we'll just put on some cartoons. So like he likes to watch cartoons from. Well, I was born in '97. He was born in '01. But the cartoons we grew up with were really different.
Yeah.
It's just a 4-year age gap. So he likes to watch the cartoons from when I was a kid. So he'll put on like Dexter, or we'll put on like Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. And I haven't watched these cartoons like I'm 20. I haven't seen them since I was like 8. So it's like 12 years. It's like all the jokes just go way over your head. Like it'll be like small stuff like Star Wars references I never caught. Like Grimm is like whistling the Imperial March, but then there's like so many sexual jokes. Like I didn't even like you wouldn't even know when you're 8.
Yeah. The first time I played Final Fantasy VI, I didn't notice a lot of the Star Wars references that they had in that game, and then the second, like after I watched them, after I got more familiar with Star Wars and I played that game, I was like, damn, there's a lot of Star Wars jokes in this. But then Who Framed Roger Rabbit would do some cool stuff like that. That's the first time I heard the joke, because Eddie Valiant comes in sneaking into the bar and he's got Roger Rabbit like tucked in underneath his coat and stuff, and so he walks into the bar and the bartender that Eddie Valiant's dating, or like that they have dated or what, they have some chemistry together. She's like, "Hey, is that a rabbit in your pocket? Or are you happy to see me?" And I was like, that's the first time I heard that joke. Usually someone says it like, "Hey, is that a banana in your pocket?" Or like, "Oh, is that a wrench in your pocket?" Usually it's something like that. Yeah, usually it's something like that. But like that's like that. I was like, damn, dude, when I heard it as a kid, you don't even pay attention to it. Then I watched it again like later, like I think like in the late or somewhere in the 2000s, I watched it. Like I got a DVD player, and I just bought a bunch of DVDs from like movies that I liked, and we watched that, and I was like, oh my god, I don't remember a lot of these jokes. These are great. And
so what kind of comedy do you think is the most underrated? I forgot if we talked about this before.
We probably have.
On a different one.
I know you think it's slapstick, and I think and for a while it used to be dry humor, but now everybody's using it. Like you get it on shows like The Office. You got Louis C.K.
What do you mean by dry humor? Sorry, because I don't know much about comedy. I only know like a couple things. What do you mean by dry humor?
It's more like it's kind of like a surrealism, or like where you're making fun of reality, and it usually has like more of a darker tone. to it, like,
Oh, okay.
or like we're like or sometimes it has like an awkward feel to it where like you don't necessarily know if you should be laughing at it or not. It's like
Yeah, I got you.
because you could think it's funny, but then other like you're like I don't know, I feel weird for thinking this is funny, like
Yeah, yeah, I get it. Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I do think it's slapstick, and I don't know why. It just is. It's just like so goofy. Like I was listening to a radio show one time on WBBM. Because at midnight on weekdays they have an hour of old time radio. It's called What Radio Was, and they do a mix of stuff, whether it's something suspenseful or it's a comedy or it's even Superman. They have from all different years, from like the 20s to like the 70s. And one of the first things I heard on there, besides some weird musical, was just like this little like slapstick kind of bit, and it just cracked me up just hearing the sound effects. I don't know why. There's even like a point in this episode where somebody just gets like mashed potatoes in their face, and I was just laughing. Like it was just so goofy. It's just so stupid. It's almost like it's something you can't take seriously. It's like Deadpool. Like I used to hate Deadpool because I was trying to take him serious. You know, I'm like, this isn't a superhero or anti-hero
Yeah.
or whatever. I'm like, this stuff's retarded. And then I started like reading it, like not taking it seriously, and I was like, oh, now I get it. Because you're not supposed to take it seriously. It's all just goofy stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and that's when people can have the most fun, like creators and writers and stuff. They can have the most fun because they don't have to take themselves seriously and they can just have a blast. And and that's one of the things like I tried to like get you into the watching that green room because you got all these comedians just sitting in a room together and they all just start roasting each other, ripping on each other. They'll tell some stories, and then someone will like you never get to hear the full story because someone interrupts the story like by like ripping on them or roasting them, and then everyone will start cracking up. And then they'll immediately go on to something else. They're like, "What? I was listening to that story, fucking asshole. You had to fucking interrupt it by telling your quick joke here or whatever." But that kind of happens in real life though too. Like you got your group of friends sitting together. You're like my group of friends. We'd be sitting around getting high or whatever, and then we just all start ripping and roasting on each other. You're telling a story, like, "Oh yeah, dude, I was out with this girl." Or whatever, we went on a date or whatever. Then your friend,
One's gonna call you a faggot as soon as and you're like, how am I a faggot? I was with a girl. You know, like
just something like that, or be like, "Oh,
at least the people I hang around with, that's kind of how they go.
they're like, "Oh, did you hit it?" I'm like, "No, dude. Like, I'm trying to take things slow." Like, "Oh, you pussy," or what, like all that stuff. I'm like, "Man, shut up, dude." Like, whatever. That's what.
That's like 100% how my cousin is.
Yeah, like that's it's always fun because then you're gonna turn around and do the same thing to them like later when they're telling this like a similar story the next day, or whatever, you know. So like,
Yeah, yeah, but at least it's not like okay, like the green room. It would have been better if it had more comedians I cared for. Like there's like Bo Burnham there. My little sister tried to get me to listen to his stuff, and I did. But I can't. I can't get into his stuff at all. But
who's?
I don't know. Bo Burnham. I think that's how you say his last name.
I think I know
Like
who
he
that
was in
is.
one of those green. Yeah, like he's lame. And so like I don't know the green room. It could have been a lot better. Like if it had people that like I cared for in it. But I don't know. But it what you were saying like about like the whole conversations thing. Like yeah, like it has to have people I care for in there to make it kind of funny. I
Right.
think I was gonna say something else with this, but I kind of forgot.
Uh, you gotta check out this comedian. I don't know if he's around anymore, but he was funny. He's got some sort of mental disability. I think he's got cerebral palsy. Well, like, and you can tell like he's a little bit slower when he tells his jokes or whatever, like with his speech. But this dude is he's one of the funniest people I've ever heard in my life, and and like and he'll tell like retard jokes and like he's like what would call a retard or whatever, but he'll tell like retard jokes and they're great and they're hilarious and like and and like I think Carlos Mencia even stole a joke from him where like he was talking about like the only people that should be offended by getting called retarded are people that can't understand what you're being called. So like, so if you call me retarded, I'm not really gonna get mad because I'm not I'm not retarded. Like Carlos Mencia did some sort of bit like that on his he had that show on Comedy Central, Mind of Mencia, and he did a bit like that, and like he did it like a rant, like when emo does it as a joke and it's funny. Like when I presented it, it wasn't funny because I don't have the delivery and like I don't remember it. But yeah, and Mencia did it and he got all sorts of applause or whatever on his show. And I'm all, like, and I remember I was all like, no, dude, that like, and that was before I knew he was stealing jokes and stuff. And I was all like, dude, like I've heard that dude from before. And I didn't remember from who. I used to drive around in my mom's van listening to XM radio, and there'd be a dope ass comedy station on there, and I just listened to everybody.
Man, I was trying to think of this one bit that Joe Rogan did last night, but I just had it in my mind when you were speaking, and then I totally lost it. I'm trying. It's been a long day. Thursdays, I don't even know why we record on Thursday nights. I've been at school for 13 hours. And then I'm trying to recall stuff from yesterday when all of today is just a blur. What bit did he do that I found hilarious? Oh man, he did have some funny bit that now I can't remember. Man, there was one funny one from Louis C.K. because I watched one of his last night too. I'm pretty sure it was Louis that said this when he said something about, I think it was his wife, how she tells a story, and she'll say something like, yeah, like when my mom was back in college, but now when she was at this one, when she transferred to the other one, did I tell you about that? And she had to transfer because this and that, and then like she'll get on like 10 different like rabbit trails, and like she won't like get on with the actual story. That one cracked me up, but of course it doesn't sound funny like when I summarize it, but.
Man,
That's something from like '05.
That's funny to me. It's funny to me because that's what happens to me when I tell stories. Like when we had that 4 hour podcast this week of Timon show, and like I would start ranting and raving about some shit I was passionate about, Flash or Arrow or whatever, and then I would completely lose my top. Like I'm like, where the fuck did I leave off at? I don't remember what the hell my main point was. And then Dalen, thank God for Dalen, he remembers everything, and he was all like, you were here, like you were talking about this, and I was like, oh my god, thank you.
Man, I don't know. Something you said earlier, like I had remembered that bit and I wanted to say it, and I'm like, I completely, man, we gotta start recording these on Tuesdays, man. Tuesdays, I'm only there from like, I don't know, from like 9 to 3 or something, or 10 to 3. Like, we had the perfect time recording on Tuesdays.
Man, are you a fan of Jim Gaffigan at all?
Never heard of him.
Oh my god, you love him. He's clean too, so you can like he doesn't swear or anything. He's clean and he's hilarious. And he talks about food a lot. He talks about being like a bad husband, which I know he's not. Like I've one of my buddies is was on tour with him over like a couple months ago, and he like tours with, he brings his whole family and stuff on tour and stuff with him. So like I know for a fact but he makes these jokes about how he's like a bad and like lazy husband or whatever, like the '90s like sitcom trope. And and like he talks about food. He talks about food a lot. Like he'll talk about like eating a hot pocket, and like he's like, "There's no point eating a hot pot. You might as well just stick it right straight in the toilet and flush it." You know, like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be clean to be funny to me. Like I just like to speak clean. Like I don't like to like on these things. I don't like to say perverted stuff or. I don't curse at all, but I don't like to say like curse words on these. I know,
but it's just crazy. It's just crazy. Like, cause a lot of comedians aren't clean, and like a lot of them are like will just like try to go like over the top with like whatever, and like Amy Schumer tries to be over the top with like being like she's like oh, I'm such a slut, and then she'll tell like all these slutty jokes or whatever, and like but there's comedians that do that really well. Like you got Chelsea Handler. Chelsea Handler does those jokes really well, where she talks about being a slut or whatever, or like being in a relationship with 50 Cent, or like cool shit like that. She has good material. It's like that's got to be crazy. Dating 50 Cent, dude, that's got to be like a wild fucking ride.
I think like the best jokes aren't even those over the top ones, even though I find those hilarious. To me, the best jokes are those like everyday things, because those things just stick with you. Like as a kid, because my mom's favorite comedian is George Carlin. So I heard about him when I was a kid because she would just listen to him. Like, well, okay, well, she wouldn't listen to him around me like very often because everything out of his mouth is pretty dirty. But like I caught on, like I heard his name, so I would look him up, and that made me laugh. His stuff made me laugh even as like 8, 10. But my favorite things he says that like still made me laugh today are those normal everyday things. Like, you ever pick up a suitcase you think is full, but it's actually empty, and for a second you feel really strong. But that still happens to me to this day. Like when we go on vacation or something, and I think it's like a full suitcase, I'll just pick it up and I feel strong for a second. Or like, I don't know, like at work, you pick up like a tote, and you think the tote is full, but it's empty, and you feel real strong for a second. Like, I'll always remember that when he says that.
That's funny.
Or when he says, or when he says like something like, "You ever notice all day Wednesday you keep thinking it's Thursday?" Like, that's hilarious. And then he's like, "And the next day you're all right again." That stuff cracks me up, and that's just like normal everyday stuff. It doesn't have to be over the top.
That's funny stuff. Like you could even throw like with that suitcase bit, you could even throw some like slapstick in there. Like, well, like you think it's full and like it's empty, you end up smacking yourself in the face. But like,
yeah, that's hilarious. It's so goofy.
and that would happen at UPS. I used to work at UPS when I graduated high school, and
I was debating working there.
It's not a bad gig, but it's not like I worked in small sort, so I would just have an array of small packages. Like sometimes I'd have a box that'd be the smallest box I dealt with the whole day, and it'd be the heaviest box in the world. And then you get something huge, or not. I didn't have nothing not anything huge, but like I'd have something like a little bit smaller than a short box. Like that would be like the biggest stuff that I'd get, and that'd be like really light. But then I get something that's like the size of like you could fit an ashtray in that box or something like that, and that'd be like freaking like 30 pounds. And I'm like, what the? What is this?
But I don't know. But that's like, I don't know, that dirty stuff could be real funny. But sometimes people go way try hard with it. Like that show on Netflix, Big Mouth, that animated one.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. It does go like, there's nothing wrong with going over the top, but I don't know. Sometimes it comes across as too try hard, especially when the protagonists are all supposed to be like 12 and 13, and then it just gets a little too weird sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's still a funny show.
There's a lot of stuff that happens like that, and like where it's probably way funnier in the writer's room, and like when you're just joking around and stuff, and then when you actually execute it, it doesn't have as much of that feel, whatever, because then we don't get all of the inside jokes because we weren't there or whatever. So there's some stuff that's hilarious to the writers that isn't necessarily hilarious to the audience, and they'll just still put it out there.
I like the bits that like George Carlin and sometimes like Bill Burr or like Dave Chappelle will do. They do this sometimes, but not as often as George Carlin did. The funny bits that really got you thinking, like I love his one about politicians and like why he doesn't vote, and then he says something about like how all politicians are like crooks and like dirty people and stuff. And then he's like, so if there are honest people, then where are all the honest politicians? He's like, because we put all the politicians there, so why aren't we putting any honest people there? And that like really makes you think.
Yeah.
It's like, why are there no honest people?
I think that just comes into a thing of like the people that like we need to put in power are the people who don't are people who should not be actively seeking the power. Like we shouldn't be people who we shouldn't be voting for people who are on the press stands. I'll like vote for me because I'm gonna. Like, we need to just find some average Joes and put them in these positions. Like or not average Joes, but or people who aren't like people like I don't know. Like I don't know how to get my point across of what I'm saying there, but I think you know what I'm saying.
I get what you mean, but I'm parked now, so I guess we're off the road.
We're off the road, man. We'll see you next week.